All right. So today on Entire Life series, what we have is Art Bierschbach.
Very good.
And I am so glad to have him on today. Art, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of how you ended up doing coaching and what sort of life you've been able to build for yourself, being a business owner.
Sure. Going way back, I went to the Air Force Academy,
Mhm.
and from there I got in the Air Force for 23 years and flew F-111. And I was, as a flight instructor, I would fly with young flight leads, teach them to be better flight leads. And that's really what I do now. There's a long path to get there. I give you the long story, but I tag along, I fly along with business leaders, and I teach them to be better business leaders. So and the way I got there is while I was in the Air Force, while I was flying, I must have ticked somebody off really bad because I got sentenced to 4 years at the Pentagon. And after my what felt like 10 years there, I went to the acquisition world, and I had what's now the F-35 propulsion team doing the engine development. And a great group of people, but I was still learning as a leader, and I was swamped every day. So I was buried in today's emails, today's vendor issues, today's development issues, and telling everybody what I wanted them to do. So I finally decided I didn't want to live like that anymore. And now I don't think anybody else should either. I figured out how to develop my team, figure out how to give them broader guidance, give them the mission and let them go accomplish it, get out of their way. And I could work on the bigger things, the mission, vision, strategy, goals, what was it we're trying to do. And I could work on the big issues. In a program spending $1 million a day, it was reduced lead time. Yeah. Anything I could do to take a day out of the program was big.
Impact.
And once I figured that out, life got a lot better because I didn't have to be overseeing every single thing in the office. The team ran it.
Yeah.
And I've been very successful when I've gotten business owners to understand that and to go down that path and develop their team and then get out of their way. And you have much happier businesses. The teams are happier because they know they're doing important work.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is good for our followers who are also like startup founders,
absolutely.
Who maybe they don't know this stuff yet, right?
No.
And they need to understand how to structure themselves. I'm a first-time startup founder myself, so this stuff interests me a lot.
Good. Yeah, well, startups have actually a particular issue because an entrepreneur will collect people around them that are true believers. Yeah. I mean, that first round they bring in, they'll do whatever it takes to be successful.
Pretty much.
And they jump right in.
Yeah.
And then they grow to a point where they need to get that next round of employees. And now they're out getting people that just want a regular job.
Yeah.
And the entrepreneurial team
isn't in it as much, right?
Exactly. And the entrepreneurial team kind of expects them to be the same way, to jump in and do whatever. So they don't have job descriptions. They don't understand roles and responsibilities. They don't have mission, vision, strategy, goals. They assume everybody knows the why because they've lived it.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they have to go from this startup entrepreneurial, everybody jumps in and does it, to, on the other hand, we got to grow up and be a real business. We have to have business processes. We have to document some things, but we have to do it without becoming overly bureaucratic.
Yeah.
So that's the fine line they have to walk.
Yeah, that's a challenge too, because that's the thing, is that small companies can move so quickly and so nimbly, right? And as you get older and bigger, it's like you got the timeline is just like,
and sometimes the business can't get out of its own way.
Yeah.
And so you really need to walk that line. And that's where I think I bring true value to the table, is understanding, what actually has to be documented.
Yeah.
And I see too many businesses, every time there's a mistake, they want to write a procedure for it. No, as a good leader, identify the issue, correct it, and move on. You don't have to document every little mistake.
Wise words, wise words. So now,
not that I learned that the hard way or anything, but yeah.
Exactly. So we can learn from your efforts in the past.
Please do. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, that's unfortunately one of the types of lessons that sticks with you best is the ones you learn the hard way.
Yeah, when you kind of stumble through it yourself sometimes.
Absolutely.
And that's a neat thing about having mentors is that you can really benefit from other people's experience rather than having to go through it yourself, if you're willing to listen to their experience, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's what we hope to share here.
Yes. And the other thing is, most business owners at startups, once they get going, they really don't have a board of directors yet. They don't have a lot of peers they can bounce things off of. So they need to go and find people like us that have been there, that have been through it, and we're willing to say some of the hard truths. Now, I'll try and say them politely, but there's some things you still got to hear, and I'm going to say them.
Well, that's the thing is that, I myself coach, really high net worth individuals. And one of the reasons that they tell me that they work with me is that I'm not a yes person, right?
Absolutely.
And so sometimes you have to get good at those hard conversations that you kind of don't really want to have, but it's a requirement of doing your job.
You just got to. And, sometimes it's actually kinder if you can give them the truth and do it up front and sooner. It's just not kind to let somebody struggle. And now sometimes I do let people struggle when there's a lesson that's better they come up with.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't want to give them my solution because it's my solution.
Right.
If I can question them into figuring it out on their own, it's their solution. They own it. They're going to do it.
Well, it is funny. And there's certain personality types that it's kind of like you have to do it so that it was their own idea, right?
Yep.
And
absolutely.
You have to realize who is that? Who am I dealing with here as a coachee, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think entrepreneurs tend to be that type where it's got to be their solution. So they have to figure it out and they have to own it.
Yep, exactly. So I love to ask this question next, and it kind of walks into perfectly what I'm going to ask you. How do you either A, find clarity for yourself, or B, help your clients to find clarity?
I think it's always easier for the client. It's harder to figure out, the guidance for myself, but, and that's why I always say the toughest person to ever lead is the one you look at in the mirror every morning.
Yeah.
That's the tough one. And so to get clarity, I think what we have to do is we have to be open and we have to truly listen. And then we have to ask good questions and draw people out. And that's just a matter of, one of the things I pride myself in is the ability to look at a situation and think on my feet and then start asking better questions. And
I love that. Better questions are key. They're so key.
In fact, are you familiar with John Maxwell, the author? Or maybe some of your team's not. Some of your viewers.
No.
Okay. He is recognized today as the authority on leadership. He's written nearly 100 books on leadership. And one of them he wrote, and by the way, to tell you the full story, he does have a team of coaches he certifies, and I'm one of them. So I am a Maxwell coach. And one of the books he wrote that I just love is Good Leaders Ask Great Questions.
Yeah.
And he just walks through some of the questions. And I really kind of base a lot of my questions on that. for instance, there's a whole chapter on questions I need to be asking myself as a leader. Mm-hmm. So that growth journey where you're trying to figure out what do I need to be doing and what do I need to be learning next. And that's why, one reason I say anybody can become a leader if they want to, because you can study it and you can learn and grow. And it's never a destination because you never arrive as a leader. There's always something more to learn.
Absolutely. I think in anything, mm-hmm. You can go down the rabbit hole really far if you really want to.
Oh, yeah. And that's why I really stress that leaders have to be humble. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean you think less of yourself. It means you think about yourself less.
Yes.
And one thing I really talk about when I talk about humility is you have to have a learning attitude. You're always open and willing to learn, mm-hmm. because everybody I meet, no matter where I go, they know something I don't know.
Yeah.
And if I'm arrogant, they're not going to share it with me. So I have to be open and listen and learn.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that with clarity, is that being open to learning new things, all of a sudden you're like, oh, so that's the way that works. Yeah. Right. And it helps you to get clarity when you're open to learning. Right.
Absolutely does.
Yeah.
So you're always advancing down that path. And you're always trying to understand, my daily mission is to add value to somebody, mm-hmm. every day. So I'm always, if I'm not looking for those opportunities and listening to people, and sometimes that's all you need to do to add value is listen, because so many people don't feel like they're listened to. Yeah. One of the biggest complaints is my boss doesn't listen to me.
Yeah.
You hear that all the time. Yeah. So being open and receiving that information, digesting it, and maybe adding to it if that's appropriate, is a way to really make people feel valued.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so that kind of comes on to my next question is power, right? Because mm-hmm. We all know that there are those days when mm-hmm. It's tough. It's difficult. Like you just said, you're not being listened to, or things are going wrong. The team that you're leading is going down a garden path you never really wanted them to go down. All of those things that can kind of make you go, why am I doing this? So once you have clarity, how do you get power, or another way of saying it is like willpower to carry on with that vision that you had? Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
Well, and the first part you said right there, you have to have a clear vision mm-hmm. and communicate it clearly and consistently. Mm-hmm. I get a kick out of seeing a big company that does a new vision statement. They'll spend months, the leadership team will spend hours and hours in a board meeting and, in an offsite, and they'll come up with just what they think is the right vision. And then they don't understand why all the workers don't get it in 5 minutes. You spent months on this, guys. Come on. So you have to communicate it clearly and consistently and over and over and over.
Yeah.
So that's the first part.
And you were saying that, especially like going in that transition from the startup to the bigger company,
yes.
you really need to mm-hmm. be very specific about that vision so that you can get people engaged, emotionally engaged with the idea of the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And then there's some instances where you do have to give direction.
Yeah.
But very, very rarely. I mean, everybody looks at the military and goes, well, you got it easy. You can just order somebody to do something. It's not the way the world works. Okay. The only time I have ever given a direct order mm-hmm. is in training, like basic training when mm-hmm. I'm teaching, or in flight. When we're in flight and I want everybody to turn left now, we all turn left now. So that's what we do that. Okay. Otherwise, I want to give people the mission, because I know as soon as I walk away, something's going to change.
Yeah.
So if they understand what we're trying to accomplish,
the direction we're going in.
Yeah, they have the latitude
kind of like,
to make adjustments.
If you think about it, what was it? I can't remember where I saw it, but it's that thing of like flight in a flight, right? In your flight path, and you've got like a couple degrees off, and you're like on the other side of the earth, right?
Yeah.
But if we all know the destination of where we're trying to get to, then we can course correct along the way, and individually, separately, to get to where we want to go, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because things are going to change. It's something's going to be different.
Yeah.
So we give people that latitude to accomplish the mission we're all trying to accomplish because they understand what it is.
Yeah.
One of the things I look for when I walk into a business is if somebody finished the task and they wait to be told what to do next, that business is in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm really looking for workers that they know what we're trying to accomplish, they finish something, and then they go find something else that helps accomplish that mission.
Yeah. Initiative, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got their own self-guided initiative.
Well, yeah, because nobody gets out of bed and says, I'm going to go to work and screw things up today.
I don't think so.
No, they want to do a good job unless we beat it out of them.
Exactly. Unless we've got a disgruntled employee, right?
Yeah. And usually they're disgruntled because somebody made them that way.
Yeah.
Now, it might have been in a prior job.
Yes.
So, it might not be your fault, but it's up to you to fix it.
Yeah. It's it's kind of like children, right? Like we all start out pure and accepting and naive and hopeful. And then, the world kind of like beats the hell out of us.
Yeah, exactly. And
then we learn to be a little bit more cautious about things.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, awesome. So what about like follow through? And how do you help people, now they've got the clarity, they've got the power, and how do you help people follow through on what they said they were going to do?
That for me was the toughest one, going from the military to the civilian world.
Sure.
When I was in the first flight I was in, when I give briefings, I have a picture, and it was kind of a social dinner, so we're all in really old-fashioned blazers and stuff. And the people in my first flight, one was a space shuttle pilot. Another one retired as a 2-star, and he is Governor Polis's lead guy for bringing aerospace into the state of Colorado. So a very accomplished group. If one of those people in that picture told me they were going to do something, I checked it off, considered it done, never followed up.
You knew.
And and then when I retired from the Air Force, I went to Raytheon as a program manager. And it was like I got kicked in the head because people would tell me they're going to do things. I'd check it off, and wow, it wasn't done. So I struggled with that one. It was tough.
Yeah.
And a little bit of this is personality driven. I'm a real adherent to the DISC personality profile assessment.
Yeah.
And because they're quick, you can do them. You can talk to somebody and get a really good feel for what they are pretty quickly. And then you can respond appropriately for them. So there are some people that you're most effective if you point out, you said you're going to do this, and if it doesn't get done, it's going to really hurt our relationship.
Yeah.
Because they're really relationship focused. There's others that if you just give them the specific tasks you want done, well, these are checklist people. They're going to write down each item and check it off when it's done.
I'm one of those.
Yeah. And you feel good when you put a check mark in, don't you? Isn't that cool? Yeah. So with somebody like that, I'm going to notice it and I'm going to say, yeah, I see you got that one checked off. Thank you. So it's that kind of
language, right?
Yes, exactly. And you're not going to change who you are. You're going to be a checklist person no matter what happens. but you can lean in that direction a little bit. So you can pay a little more attention to the relationship and make them more comfortable. And it helps you and it helps them. And it's just it's a less stressful place to be working on.
Yeah, you have to always kind of get in the head of who you're working with, you know, to speak their language, and that can be really challenging. I think that's kind of like one of the skills that as a coach that's something that's developed. It's not something that, well, maybe for some people it comes innately, but I think it's for me, it was really a skill I had to develop in time.
Yes. Well, can I quickly share just a couple tips on how to tell who you're working with?
Please do.
You know right away if somebody's talking real fast, you pace them, you talk a little faster, and you don't give them all the details because they don't want it.
Yeah.
Where if somebody's speaking a little more slowly and they're very deliberate, you're going to want to give them 1 point at a time, because if you give them 3 points, they're still digesting the first one and they totally miss the next 2.
Yeah.
The other thing I look for is if I can get them to talk about something, do they say I think or I feel? If they say I feel, they're probably very relationship focused.
Visual or kinesthetic, right?
Yeah. And if they say I think, they are probably very task focused.
Yeah.
So just with those little cues, I can start figuring out, how do I want to treat somebody? You know, I love Myers-Briggs, but I can't tell if you're an ISTJ in 30 seconds. I can get a feel for a disc profile in 30 seconds or a minute if I can get you talking. Yeah.
Yeah. That Myers-Briggs thing is pretty interesting. I'm like, there are only 0.08 of me in the world. I'm an INTJA, the architect.
Yeah. Okay.
So you wouldn't know it from my background, right?
I know
what you mean.
Some of that's situational, and some of it is changes as we mature.
Yes.
You know, when I was, for DISC, when I first started, I was an off-the-wall D when I came out of college. But I'm a little more moderated now, and I'm a little more adaptable. And I mean, I went one time in my life, I never expected to happen. I went right down to the relationship focused, absolutely, totally non-aggressive. And that was first time I met my grandson after he was born. I just never expected to go there, but I did.
You gotta love that. So Art, tell us what your free gift is for people, because I know that you've definitely got something of value here, knowing your background.
Yep. I think we show people we value them by the way we treat them. So what I have is a PDF. If you just jump on yourbusinesswingman.com, there'll be a pop-up. You can put your email in and it'll give you a link to go get a PDF on behaviors for success.
Awesome.
So these are ways, if you treat people, they're going to respond. So it's integrity, respectfulness, forgiveness, selflessness, humility, like I mentioned, commitment, kindness, and the one my wife will tell you I struggle with probably the most is patience. But there's a little blurb on each one. And what I really love about these behaviors is it's not just the way I treat people. I demand my team treats each other that way too.
Yeah.
Part of the reason is because I'm lazy.
Yeah.
If there's a whole bookshelf in most HR units, I never want to go read. All that stuff on workplace bullying. But if they're treating each other respectfully, we don't get close to that. I don't have to go read that book.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Good point. Well, we'll make sure that we post that below here so that everybody can grab that. And I thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And the other thing I really believe strongly is I should show I can add value before I ask for money.
Yes.
So if anybody just wants to talk for a half hour or an hour about their business or about a situation they're trying to deal with, let's talk. We'll grab a cup of coffee, get on Zoom, or, if you're in Denver, Phoenix, somewhere where I tend to be, I'll be happy to sit down with you and we can talk about things and see if we hit it off. And if somebody needs a coach and they don't hit it off with me, John Maxwell team has over 30,000 coaches. We can find somebody that's a match. I'd be happy to help them.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed talking with you, and I'll talk anytime you want to give me a buzz.
Okay. Sounds good.
Great.